Hey everybody, this is Larry the Cable Guy. Check this out. So I'm in my truck driving with my buddy, and we was heading up to the men's warehouse to fart in the suits, and he's listening to his phone, and I said, that sounds like Hermie Sadler. He said, it is Hermie Sadler. He's got a podcast called Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I said, Sadler and the Senator? He said, yeah, that's his good buddy, Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley. I said, well, what in the world? He didn't know this. I said, did you know that Hermie Sadler was voted one of the 50 best looking drivers in NASCAR? He said, I did not know that. I said, because it ain't true. You never know, though. He never takes off his helmet. But I know one thing, this show Leaning Right, Turning Left is good. So pull up a chair right there by your phone, get yourself a cold beer, and give a listen right here to this week's episode of Leaning Right, Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I'll tell you what, I bet Michael Waltrip's even listening. He's always wanted to do something like that. Oh, Sadler, got another one over on Waltrip. Get her done.
I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm leaning right.
I'm Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left. This is Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator.
Hello, Hermie.
Senator.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great, and here we are in Richmond. I've had a federal court case. Got you to come up here. We're in my apartment here in Richmond.
You got me off the door knocking.
You did, and you had some big door knocking today. You were willing to come up here and tape this podcast early in this week so we can release it midweek as we usually do. So I appreciate you coming up here to the apartment. We're not at the
Only
Stanley
because you fed me, or fed us.
Well, yes, and we'll get to us in a second, but we're not at the Stanley skyscraper, high atop overlooking Richmond at the Capitol. We are at my apartment that I stay out here in Richmond when I'm in Richmond, either for legislative business or for a lot of legal work that I do in here in Richmond.
Yep.
But I'm just glad you're here. But you know what? Last week we were missing somebody that I actually had my UPS guy stop in my office and say, hey, last week there was no Shep Moss. But tonight we have Shep Moss. Shep Moss back from Punta Cana.
Back to Punta Cana.
And man, what a trip.
What are you doing,
And
Shep
I can't
Moss?
wait to everybody to get the details of the Punta Cana trip.
Punta Cana.
It's going to be a long podcast if we get into all those details.
Well, if it's anything like what we were talking about at dinner, we're going to have to shorten it a little bit from the details.
Well, the Cliff Notes version was the drinks were not very drinky.
Right. They were watered down.
Watered down.
The food
was not Senator Stanley-ish.
And although he still ate it, so he does not believe that he lost weight in our weight loss challenge while he was in a foreign nation.
Definitely did not.
And we will just say he claims to have done an extensive amount of cardiovascular activity.
He was exercising.
Exercising
in a marital way. My goodness. And we're not going into this is a family show, but man, the story we got. There you go. First words out of his mouth. $25. So you guys came over here. We waited on you, Shep Moss, because we wanted you to be a part of the show. Hermie came in earlier. This is not my fault that we're starting here at 9:00 at night. This is your fault. I made you dinner, and we had quite a story about your constant vacation plans. You make me wonder what I'm doing wrong. You're always on vacation.
He was just in the islands a couple months ago. Then a couple weeks ago, he missed all of my events because he had to go to Myrtle Beach.
Correct.
And then he was in Punta Cana. Yeah. And, and the man lives full time at a Taj Mahal at the lake.
Not yet. No, not yet. My residence has not changed yet.
Oh, that's okay. Right. That's right. This is he's
multiple secondary residence at the lake. Okay.
I mean, we have a lot to backfill on the life of
you and Alan Joseph.
Yeah.
Got no idea what y'all do, but got residences across the United States and abroad.
With tiki bars.
And
aquatic equipment like jet skis and boats.
Let me answer that how Alan Joseph
have I gone wrong?
And I'm like, Alan, what's going on? And this guy's got 4 houses.
I know. Where have we not done this right? Fill us in, Shep. Tell us where we went wrong as human beings. And don't say it's because I got a side gig in a DJ booth.
Oh, it's exactly why it is.
So you spin your stacks of wax for marriage and wedding things.
Oh, yeah.
And reunions.
It's very lucrative.
And that lets you go to Mexico.
Yes.
Well,
Punta Cana, whatever it is
the
Mexico,
key to the success of party time music is the fact that he keeps his overhead low.
One
because
employee.
He's him.
One employee.
He's got good benefits, though.
So what are you doing, Shep?
Man, I've just finished our budget work sessions. The reason why I'm late here tonight. So
and so for those that may be tuning in, and we're really glad you're joining us. It's a great tidal wave of people that are listening to this podcast.
Oh yeah,
And Shep is not only he works for Boyd
Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Honda,
and Brandon is a wonderful guy and sells great cars at great prices, right?
Yep.
And you're a salesman there, right?
sales manager.
Manager.
That's the difference.
And then you run a side gig.
Well, I've been a DJ for 35 years, and then my wife and I own Memory Maker, so it's actually 3 jobs.
Wow. Small business extraordinaire.
Yes.
Okay, so this enables you to have all that extra income,
Yes.
which then you spend in ways that are far outside of what normal people do. I mean, you are living the big.
It's an American dream.
What are you saying? You can't hide money? Isn't that right, Herm?
You can't hide it.
Him and Alan Jones. Can I say this again?
Yeah.
Mr. Moss Shep Moss. Just got back from Punta Cana. Didn't matter about how bad the food was or the drinks watered down.
Right.
He got in a lot of cardio, and he has multiple residences.
And he did not get abducted by the cartels.
I almost drowned down there, though.
Is that right? I don't know.
And you were bartending at the bar.
Yeah, I did
at the
bartend.
tiki bar, right?
Made 62 panty dropper shots. Now, our listeners don't know what the panty droppers are.
So what's in that?
Describe it.
Coconut rum, vodka, orange juice, grapefruit juice, banana juice,
And fentanyl?
and a little top it off with cranberry. Shake it up. It's a panty dropper.
The drinks that you made were not quite as watered down as the resort drinks.
Oh, absolutely not. No, they were doubled and tripled up. 62 in a row I made.
So why were you down in Punta Cana?
I went, a family friend, daughter, was having a
we go.
destination.
He went down for the weekend, just vacation, getaway.
A destination wedding for a family friend.
Did you DJ down there?
I did not have to DJ, sir.
You have to make sure you have to report.
I know. I tried to get them to at least let me introduce the wedding party, but
They got smart.
yeah, they got smart.
And so what was some guy named Enrique spinning the stacks of wax?
Oh man, they did a great job.
Is that
Had an
right?
awesome band up on a rooftop. A little restaurante there right on the beach.
Did you drink
Rooftop.
the water?
No, bottled water.
Okay.
Bottled
Don't drink the water.
Do not drink the water.
No agua. All right. So you had a great time. 3-day vacation. Totally ignored us, your friends, your besties.
I was texting you if you
did
recall.
send me some shots of your very burned feet.
I was
Your
texting
son-
you.
Wait a minute, this is a little uncomfortable. Y'all are sending
Listen,
pictures
did
of
you
each other.
actually him in a suit and his short pants? He's wearing a suit that didn't have regular size pants, had short pants.
They're just shorts, white dress shorts.
And he said it's
Pleated.
the best picture he's ever taken of himself.
I mean, it was Don Johnson-esque.
Shorts or jorts?
No, they were shorts.
Oh.
I mean, have you ever seen
Don
Miami
Johnson
Vice?
never wore shorts and a suit top in Miami Vice.
He did wear coats in Miami Vice.
Bill,
Yeah, but not shorts.
Bill,
What?
look at Shep. He just compared himself to Don Johnson.
In that picture, my wife called me Don Johnson. That's all that matters.
We're going to have to start this thing over. So
I know because I really didn't hit record. Damn.
good.
No, I'm
That's
just
great. So pick us up where, all right. So you go on a vacation, which Hermie and I don't get.
Punta Cana.
I mean, I've not been out of the country. My poor long-suffering wife, Laura, who I love very dearly, we work all the time, just like your wife, Angie.
yeah.
He's living the high life.
No, didn't you remember the last podcast? I was born with a silver spoon.
Oh, that's right, from the football.
And I make my living suing small businesses and ruining the lives of entrepreneurs across the Commonwealth
So
of
according to
Virginia.
your opponent in the Senate race, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, you're too busy messing everything up to go on vacation.
I know.
But not Shep Moss.
Well,
Shep Moss, councilman South Heel, he can be a business owner, he can be a politician, and he can go to foreign countries and make shots of named things that I don't want to repeat, right?
So let me tell you about my experience flying into Baltimore
Please, because
from Punta Cana.
we've wanted to know this for a very
I've
long
been
time.
waiting all night to hear about the
Yeah,
trip to
please.
Baltimore.
So We fly back in after a 2-hour delay leaving the island because of the weather is bad stateside. So we fly into Baltimore. Well, to back up, I got my TSA pre-check. Of course, my wife's went through in 30 minutes. Mine took 2 weeks. But anyway, while I'm in Punta Cana, I got my approval. We fly back into Baltimore. We've got 38 minutes to go 2 zip codes across the airport to our connecting flight. The first thing happened, we get there, they had changed the gate. Well, the sign wasn't updated. The app wasn't updated. The Southwest app was not updated. We got to go back another 2 zip codes to the other side of the airport, by foot, mind you. And you saw what my feet looked like. And then you see what my belly looked like. All the way back across the airport, there is a timer clock.
Was your butler pissed?
He was a little upset. Yeah, my wife did not like carrying that luggage, I can tell you. So we get up to the waiting line, and it's 16 minutes. Now, mind you, only had about 38 minutes total. That's before I go across the airport. I come back, 16-minute wait. I said, no problem, Terry. We're going to the TSA pre-check. We'll walk right through. Not open. Not open.
Damn you, Joe Biden.
I mean, what's going on?
I mean, you're not making your return to the United States proper.
So they charged me $78. The first airport I get to, I can't use it.
I'm sorry. You know, you've really brought this show down. I mean, this is such a downer. That story was. I mean, Hermie, you okay with that? Do we need to take a break here?
I think
I mean, oh my gosh.
we might need to start over.
Yeah. I mean, dang nabbit. I mean, but at least you had a good time in Mexico, right?
It was a very nice time.
Okay. Well, so what else is going on in your life, Shep? I mean, you were late here today. You're working on budgets in South Hill.
Yes, budgets.
Town councilman extraordinaire. You know, of the many hats you wear, you texted us and said, I'm out. I'm not coming.
Hey, I got a
and
question.
we waited for you.
I saw on social media, Brandon Boyd, your boss, talking about some cars being stolen. Were any of y'all's cars stolen?
In the Henderson store they were. So
Yeah, talk about that. So Brandon Boyd owns a number of dealerships.
5 dealerships.
In North Carolina and Virginia.
Yes.
He doesn't go on vacation near as
We're
much as
seeing
Shep
a
Moss does.
high crime rate around here and almost a, you know, without any care for humankind or anything else, the brazen breaking in and stealing stuff of other people. We're seeing it right now in New York and Chicago, where kids are taking over the streets and then busting into small businesses, taking stuff that doesn't belong to them, not being prosecuted. Now we're seeing it in our rural areas, are we not?
Yeah. So what
that
happened?
should concern us all right now.
Yep.
Saturday night, I believe it was. Of course, I was on vacation, but I did get a text.
Maybe that's why.
So I think it was Saturday night.
He was supposed to be
Could have
guarding
been
the front
Friday,
door of the dealership.
Saturday, Sunday. Who gives a damn? Bring me a panty dropper.
Yeah,
How
and
many
a Miami
cars got
Vice.
stolen? Oh, shit.
So Shep,
And another Miami
tell
Vice.
us why your boss suffered a breaking and entering because you weren't there, because you were in Punta Cana.
Well, I was watching. Let me tell you something else about Punta Cana. I've never seen so many thongs,
This is a Shep show.
G-strings, and cheeks
Oh, good
around
Lord.
one
All right,
swimming
all right,
pool.
let's
talk about a
in
serious
my
topic
life.
now.
Let's go about theft.
Well, okay.
Coming
So
to our rural areas, actually.
3 males
This is organized crime.
break in the dealership through a showroom window, crowbar, smash it, go in, across the showroom directly to the closet that holds all of the vehicle keys.
Which is where? I mean, no, don't tell us because somebody else might be there. But I mean,
Duh.
do you have to know where it is? To
You
go
would
find
have
it?
to know where it is.
So it seems like
Yes.
an inside job from the beginning.
So then they proceed to go over and open the double showroom doors, get in 2 vehicles, drive them right through the showroom doors, not through the glass, but through the door. And then if I'm not mistaken, the 3rd vehicle was on the lot. So they stole 3 vehicles.
So they knew what keys to get. They knew what cars to go to from the keys they got. And they were able to break through the showroom glass windows
To get in.
unabated.
So it's my understanding they broke into 3 different dealerships across North Carolina,
Not just Brandon's.
not just
Not
Brandon.
Boyd Chevrolet.
And
or
I think
Boyd
they
Dodge.
have recovered 1 of the vehicles so far.
Have they caught who did this?
I have not heard.
Because you were in Punta Cana.
I'm still in jet lag.
Well, yeah, you were in Baltimore
I'm in
trying to get
jet
from
lag.
one side of the airport to the other. So you
it
wouldn't
was
have that
horrible.
updated information.
It was horrible.
So, I mean, how do you get away with that kind of stuff? I mean, how is this okay in society, Shep? Especially, look, we see those kind of stories, and I didn't see anything of this on the news. It seems like the liberal media doesn't report this.
Well, that's by design.
But how, what we're seeing in the inner cities and the lack of respect for small business owners spreading down into the rural areas. But that is just brazen.
Just the other day on Fox News, they were talking about you could not buy a razor, a toothbrush, a tube of toothpaste, or deodorant without getting a clerk to unlock the case.
That is
to
a true
give you
story.
those
I
items.
had to do that to get deodorant.
It's crazy.
In a Walgreens.
And these items have very little significant money cost, but they're stealing it in volume and selling it on the street.
And now we see it coming to us. I mean, gentlemen, I think we all agree that we've got to do something about this. This can't go on. Law and order has to be restored, because if there's no law and order, if there's no respect for the rule of law, you're always going to have people that are going to be the criminal element. But if you don't have the restoration of law and order and the respect for the rule of law being taught to our young children, then they're going to grow up as they're growing up now, it seems, more and more with social media and everything else, almost with the entitlement, which is, I believe that I should be given certain things, and if I don't, I'm just going to go out and get them, because you know what? Law enforcement is handcuffed by politicians, won't allow us to do anything to prosecute me, so I may get probation, I may get a misdemeanor. In New York, you're seeing they're not even prosecuting half the cases. They're prosecuting Trump. That's the crime of the century, but they're not prosecuting people that are walking up brazenly and hitting people with a bottle on the top of the head, breaking into bodegas, stabbing the bodega owners, and the bodega owner, when he defends himself in New York, he gets charged with murder.
He gets charged.
Hey, I
mean, this is now, if it's okay there, then it's going to be okay everywhere. And this is what scares me about the decay of our society.
When I was a young kid, even growing into my teenage years, I wouldn't say afraid, but when my dad walked in the room,
yeah,
I straightened up. It was a respect thing.
Yep.
And same thing with, growing up in Emporia, the sheriff back in those days was Earl Sasser, Sheriff Earl Sasser.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw Earl Sasser anywhere, it was like, I was like in awe of him in that uniform, and I straightened up. We've got to find a way, even with this generation of kids that we've got, to restore the pride of the uniform, the pride of the badge,
and the respect,
but
it's also the respect for themselves.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing more and more and more of is that this social media, this internet, this TikTok, this Instagram, I mean, it is leading our children astray. We're seeing now TikTok, Instagram, and those things, body shaming children. Now we're having mental disorders, especially with our young men and women, but especially with our young daughters, about eating disorders. Those kind of things, which quite frankly, were present when we were growing up, but were not as prevalent. And now we're seeing that. We're seeing all these influences. I read this article today where a kid, there's a Benadryl challenge, and do not do this, but on TikTok, where you're challenged to eat 14 Benadryl pills, and supposedly it'll make you hallucinate. This poor young man did this to film it on TikTok, went into seizures, and died.
Wow.
I mean, we're allowing other forces other than the parents, other than society, other than the community to dictate what our kids are doing. And these kids don't know what they're doing. They don't know what's right and not right. If it's on TikTok and it looks cool, that's fine. In the same way, there are kids that are watching the news today or filming when they get in fights, putting it on the internet, shaming other kids, bullying other kids. And not only that, then they see when someone so brazenly breaks into an auto dealership, well, why can't I do that? It's just another level of criminality that social media is saying, hey, it's not okay. And then the government entities that are supposed to say it's not okay aren't prosecuting, which enables more bad behavior. That's what concerns me the most as a senator and as a dad and even as a lawyer. The kids that I'm representing in court today, in criminal court, compared to the ones I represented 30 years ago when I started being a lawyer, those ones were scared of the process. Those ones showed respect. Those ones you could save by using the process to put them back on the right path. I stand next to kids right now in juvenile courts across the Commonwealth of Virginia, representing them. Parents hire me, and I'm scared of them. And they don't get it, and they don't listen to my lectures, and they look at me like I'm a dumb idiot adult. And this is now what we're seeing, the decay of our society. And if you lose it and criminality goes up, which criminality since the pandemic has gone up umpteen % across the nation. Murders are up. Break-ins are up. Kids crowding the streets, way up because they get this on social media. Then you're seeing a lack of respect, as you said, Herm, for society's leaders, for law enforcement, for parents. We're now having our children raised by TikTok that says it's okay to go steal. You won't get punished. And that's where society is failing.
It's all intertwined. The problems in schools, the problems with teachers not wanting to teach in schools with the environments, the way the kids are, crime in the neighborhoods, on the streets, these other things. It's all kind of a big circle, and it goes back to not having that sense of pride. Not, in some cases, it's also broken home situations and not having the father figure or the strong mother figure, whatever the case may be. A lot of different reasons, but the fact of the matter is, people in general have they don't have respect for fellow man anymore like they used to.
My parents used to say, oh, it was a different world when I was growing up. But I don't think...
kind of way Bill talks to me on this show.
But you know what?
I respect and love you, Shep.
Bill, we talk about racing all the time.
Yeah.
All right. To me, even like to take a right-hand turn, you look at NASCAR racing, you look at, especially like in the Xfinity series, in the truck series, when there's a mix of younger drivers and the older drivers, the sense of respect on how to race and respect for equipment and respect for the people that have to build and fix race cars and equipment when it's torn up is not the same with the up and coming 16, 17, 18-year-olds as it is with the older generation of drivers that in lots of cases worked on, built, fixed, and repaired their own stuff. I mean, they go down the corner now and you dump somebody, you know, and back in the day, you actually worked to try to pass somebody.
Yeah.
And somebody told me this.
The shortcut.
Yesterday, we're here on Tuesday. Yesterday, I went down to Charlotte for Stuart Friesen's AIM for Autism golf event. Saw a lot of my old buddies. You commented about seeing the pictures, you know, Michael Waltrip and Johnny Benson, Phil Parsons, Randy LaJoy, Stuart Friesen, all these people. And we were actually, some fans were coming up and were talking, and they were actually talking about remembering watching us race at South Boston, at Hickory, places like that. And he said, you know, you guys used to go out there and run 300 laps at South Boston, Hickory, Orange County, come in when the race is over, and tire marks up and down both sides of the car, and nobody said a word. It was that kind of racing, but we didn't tear each other's cars up, but that door banging, you know, hard nosed racing. And now you've got a lack of respect. Somebody dumps somebody, or you lay one little bumper on somebody, and then somebody gets mad, and it's just a different era. Yeah. And not only for the people on track, but people that are consuming the product, whether it be on the TV, radio, whatever. But you know, this person
you
really
can notice the difference. But doesn't it get right back to, you know, if you look at society, you look at TV, you look at social media, you look at our government, they are attacking the core family. And when you attack the core family, you attack the core family values. When you degrade those, then the government becomes the controller, or the social media platforms or what have you. And so there's somebody other than your dad or mom or that police officer to respect. And so if some kid on TikTok says it's okay to be a criminal, you think that's cool and you can ignore your parents. It seems to me, though, that the government and society's elements and implements, such as these social media platforms, are creating the opportunity for those children to have someone else raise them, so to speak, in a way that is creating that on many levels, even the legitimate levels, like you just said on NASCAR, where these guys have made it to the top level, but no one has taught them respect. And so what they see is, well, look at me. I got 150,000 likes by crashing into somebody and not being respectful. I got 150,000 likes by getting in a fight in the bathroom and publishing the video on Instagram, TikTok, or whatever other platform. I mean, we are moving away from those traditional values that are the cornerstone, the foundation of society. That's what concerns me most.
Shep, you gonna join us? Oh,
Yeah, he's over there working his phone like it owes you money. What the heck?
It's called logistics. I'm trying to make sure we're set.
Ever since I gave him the board here at Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, he takes his job very seriously. So
we're gonna
he
call
must be,
him.
Well, look,
just like his DJ.
Wait a minute, I got a new name for you on the show. TNC,
TNC.
the new Chad.
Well, I was going to comment
Oh,
earlier.
we missed Chad Monday, Brad Tuesday. I hope you're out there listening, buddy.
And
But you got big man Shep Moss.
You
running the
touched
board.
on this a little while ago, and then you got off on the racing part a little bit. But don't you think that since the pandemic, that the TikToks and the challenges and the people's mental health has contributed? The pandemic has contributed to this problem.
Absolutely. In fact, I was reading a report. Again, I read a lot of this stuff where almost 60% of our young people under the age of 18 are suffering from some kind of self-proclaimed mental illness or self-diagnosed or diagnosed mental illness. I mean, and I think it came from that year that we basically put our kids in the barn and wouldn't let them go
Lock
out
the
and
door.
grow or learn. And then those other outside influences became more important because that was their way to reach to the outside world. And so I think you're exactly right. And so why is that happening? This has never happened in our society before. Why are we having such an increase with our young people with suicidal thoughts, with body shaming issues, with eating disorders,
Mass
with other
shootings.
disorders? Exactly, because we have lost the belief that the foundation for a good society is a family. You know, both of you, and I'm so blessed and lucky to have my family and to raise my kids in the way I've raised my kids, keep them off the social media platforms, keep them totally together. Hermie's taught me to integrate the boyfriend and girlfriend stuff, and I'm working on that. But you know, that's being a parent.
If you want to stay a part of it, you better.
I get it.
Yeah,
It
you're
used to
right.
be, you know, when we were growing up, you know, my parents were always warned, don't let the TV be the babysitter. But there's so many more influences out there other than just a TV. A TV is a controlled environment. But I've said this before, maybe on this podcast, and I said it in politics. That iPad, that phone, which I don't let my children have phones, and it's very limited until they're 16 to 18, allows a pedophile to come into your house without ever opening the door or coming through the
Correct.
window. It allows, and that's why one of my biggest bills this year, it allows your children to have access to pornography and other things they should not be looking at as their brains are forming, as their social, inside is forming. And that's why I wrote that bill at the last part of this last General Assembly session that would make those porn sites put filters, not just, type in your name and your birth date, but have identification filters that keep 18-year-olds and or people under the age of 18 and under from being exposed to that. Because I read a report, look, I just read reports that said 1 out of 10 children under the age of 10 have been exposed to pornography, serious hardcore pornography on the internet. And by the time they reach 15, 85% of all children have seen
they have
exposed to it. And that affects them, in terms of building strong, normal relationships between the opposite sex. It is an influence that makes them think that they are somehow unworthy. It is a scourge. It is an epidemic. And yet liberal politicians, especially even in the Senate and the House, said, you can't control the internet. That's free speech. That's interstate commerce. And I said, damn it, we're gonna control it. We passed that bill, and the governor's about to sign it. But we are letting now these much harsher and more horrible influences creep into our family life, and it's degrading the family foundation, which then degrades society, and then we see a free society that we have collapse.
So let me ask you this. 2 things I saw in the airport. You were talking about,
Are we in Baltimore again?
don't let the TV or the iPad be the babysitter. Oh, I see it. It's on
Watching
TV
Fox
right now.
News, well, it's turned down. They're showing
in Chicago.
In New York
From Saturday.
a guy just brazenly, I'm using this word, walk up with a bottle, a glass bottle, and viciously attack a police officer in the head.
Crazy.
And that's okay. And that's not okay.
Unbelievable.
So in the airport, back in Punta Cana, we were standing there waiting to get on the plane, and I'm going to say a girl, maybe 6, 7 years old, standing beside us with an iPad. And she had out her little stylus and was drawing probably one of the most beautiful ocean water type scenes I've ever seen. Very productive at that point with the iPad. Okay. But that could also have gone the other way too. Now, the mother was there beside her. She was very much in tune with what the little girl was doing. Very creative, very talented at a very young age. But she can't use that tool or be allowed to use that tool to do what you were just talking about, to access all of the evils on the internet. It could be very disruptive.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I noticed, and I'm not against tattoos, but the younger generation, I'm going to be 55. So the younger generation looks like to me the 20 and 30 somethings have really migrated to the body piercings and multiple tattoos. Almost a walking canvas of art, as they would call it. But I noticed through my travels, tattoos have become extremely prevalent. And I just wonder what you think about that as far as their self-morale.
Well, I've seen
colored hair, purple hair, pink
my wife
hair.
and I have noticed this, and you know, we as parents said we would never allow that to happen. We would never, because we police our children because they are not old enough to make those decisions. And I don't care how many times my son says he wants a virtual reality headset. You ain't getting one because you're going to live in this reality. And so again, parents have to step back in and say, I'm not letting these outside influences influence my children, because when they grow up, they're not going to have the tools they need. They're not going to be right and righteous and have character and integrity. You have failed as parents. Also, though, I think this has been a great wake-up call for us as parents with our public school systems, with CRT and indoctrination, teaching our children what to think, that is, by their indoctrination agenda rather than how to think when they taught us how to read, write, arithmetic, those kind of things. We, the slumbering giant, have to wake up as parents and say, we're in control of the education and the raising of our children, not society, not some app, not some government, not some liberal teachers union, and take it from there. This is our revolution. It is not a silent revolution. It's not a violent revolution. It is somewhere in between, where we say enough with the woke crap, enough with the violence in the streets, enough with the kids taking over bodegas and convenience stores because they all send a message out on TikTok to go get there and go get something for free. Enough is enough. We've got to start it now. These liberal policies have created this, and what we see is crime, lack of respect, and a degrading of our society that can't go on any longer.
I probably, not going to say disagree with I would say in my own personal view, as it relates to tattoos, I have a lot of friends. You do too.
Yeah.
In the professional wrestling industry and other industries that tattoos to a lot of my friends are ways that they express themselves or their views or their life stories or whatever. And to me, I've never judged and I'm not saying you are, but I've never looked at somebody with a tattoo. I have one tattoo on the inside of my wrist about autism awareness tattoo, but I've never looked at tattoos as anything other than somebody's ability or however they decide to express themselves. And I've never judged one way or the other. My two, Cora and Naomi, both, and you can't see it, but they have tattoos on their sides that has the autism puzzle piece with Haley Drew's name on them on their side, that they decided they wanted to get that and do that. And so I understand different people look at different things different ways, and the way people express themselves mean different things to different people at different times. But I've always just not allowed, because people can do it. I mean, I've always just accepted people when they have different ways of, this will be the only tattoo I ever get. I'm not
sure.
I'm not but if people decide to, to do that and express something about their life or their livelihood or something that happened in their life or whatever the case may be, then that's okay.
But what you're also doing though, when you're younger, is you're trying to draw attention to yourself. I see kids that are 12, 13 having one of those bull rings in your nose or a piercing in your eye or here or there. I've seen actually clients of mine who, when they were younger, got those, I don't know what you call those discs in their earlobes.
Right.
And then I see them 5 or 10 years later and their earlobes are so disfigured and the disc is gone. And they're like, I can't get this back to where it is. There's a lot of regret later. When you're an adult, you want to get a tattoo, go get a tattoo. My grandfather got one when he got in the Navy. My dad never had one. He was in the Navy, a naval officer. I will never, I don't like needles, put one on me. And I hope my kids never do. But that's just my decision. We don't hold anybody against, tattoos are legal.
Yeah.
But when a parent allows a child, and I think that's your point, Shep, an 11-year-old, 12-year-old, and I've seen them on kids that young, that's kind of blurring the lines between adulthood for the kid.
And let me be clear. Let me be clear too. Kids that age is a whole nother thing that shows rebellion to a degree. Probably at that age, I was talking more of, more to 18
and up
ages.
Well, when you're an adult, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I mean, that's called a free society, so long as you're decent in doing it and not breaking the law and not harming somebody else or a child or a dog or a cat or an animal. That's part of a free society. You want to do what you want to do, go ahead and do it as long as it's for you, but don't force that down my throat because you do it for a certain reason. Go live your life, but leave me the frig alone and leave my kids alone and don't force your ideology. I mean, we were talking about our iPads and stuff, and what bothered me most recently was my son was watching something that we approved for him to watch on YouTube. Well, there's a space bar on the left-hand side, and there's things that you can click on. One of the prominent things that he could click on is this thing that said, "Are you gay? Click here." And I walked by and saw it. Well, again, that's the kind of influence we're talking about. I don't want my children to be exposed to. And for him, it may not have meant what it meant to me. But that kind of access or that kind of ability for adults to then determine or allow kids to make those decisions, whether it be a tattoo or to allow them to touch and on that part of the screen and go to those things, that's my priority. That's my primacy as a dad.
I get it.
And I'll make those decisions for my children because guess what? They're kids. They don't know how to make decisions. If they did, they could pay all the bills and pay my mortgage. And I'd sit home and they'd work. If they were so smart to make cogent decisions and the right decisions, then we don't need to do anything as adults to raise them. But they don't. They're stupid. You know why they're stupid? Because they don't know anything yet. They learn it over time. I still believe at 25, I was pretty stupid. And I was an adult in law school, trying to get a law degree, working my ass off, and I was still a dumbass. I believe children today are even worse than I was back in the day. And the thing is, if we don't put these safeguards, these rails around them, these safety rails, and then we're allowing other people to direct their lives, to influence their lives, and affect their lives in negative ways, which in turn affects society in a negative way, which really will hurt us as we grow older and we let this next generation take over.
Well, we're talking about society and what I was talking about with tattoos. Hermie, you're always advertising help wanted. All the time. See it all over social media. And I'm not talking about the tribute tattoo or the one on your wrist. I'm referring to people that I saw with 50 tattoos, face, neck, the piercings.
You're drawing attention to yourself if you do it like on your face.
The big lugs.
Don't sit there and say, what are you looking at? I don't know. You drew a bald eagle on your forehead. I mean, I can't look at it.
We're talking about workforce. Life is already hard enough as it is. It already is very, very hard. These older teenager and 20-something kids, maybe part due to the pandemic because everybody can work from home, they're working remote. I don't want to come in your restaurant and have the massively tatted up and massively body pierced person waiting on me when I'm ordering food. That's not attractive to me. Well, it's just not. I think...
and that's your right. I mean,
well, I get that, but I think it's part of rebellion.
Remember that song?
I think
it's
what we're.
Let me just say this while we're here talking. If there are any massively tatted massively pierced people that want a job at Faux Show that'll come to work every day
You're
on
hired.
time.
I get it.
Wait on people and not steal. You're hired.
And have a good personality.
And good personality.
I just think it's all part of the rebellion, which goes back to what we were just watching on TV. They're just rebellion and taking over society with
Attacking
no
people
guardrails.
they don't even know just because
No
they're out there
guardrails.
in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And look, I don't have anything against a tattoo. My son, my oldest son, has a tattoo. I'm talking about the over-the-top, full-body tattoos.
Sure.
What are
The
those
sleeves,
people?
the
what-
pant thing.
And look, if they go with the rock and roll band, they go with the wrestlers. I get that. But what's a 22-year-old going to do with piercings from his chin to his forehead with two big golf ball size holes in his ears?
Yeah.
And he's all tatted up face and no eyelids and a slit tongue. What kind of job is he going to get?
Shep,
What
the
is he
next
gonna do?
time
Hard to remove.
you're around me somewhere at a wrestling show, I want you to walk up to the Undertaker
And slap.
and slap him right upside the face and question why he's got so many tattoos.
But you know what? When he's 75, he's going to look awful. Because I have now
I want
seen,
you to
I
go
guess,
tell
some of the-
Undertaker when he's 75.
Yeah,
But
I'll do that.
Glenn Jacobs, the dopey mayor from Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
The way you
That was
go,
Kane.
Kane. Yeah,
That's Kane.
He has tattoos.
I don't think he does.
I don't remember him in
That's
his
why he's in
character.
politics
though.
and responsible. And
I don't think he
leading,
does.
Tennessee to a great future. But, you know, I mean, I remember looking at my grandfather when he was in the 70s, and he had, you know, one of those anchor, whatever, tattoos on his forearm, and you couldn't tell what the hell that thing was. So I can't imagine that all this great art, and there's some really good artists, and there's some really stupid tattoos out there, what they're going to look like when they're 75 or 80. And I have a lot of my friends who got tattoos are like, man, I wish I didn't do it. We went up to a place here in Richmond when I was at Hamden, Sydney, and we were putting our fraternity Greek letters on the inside of our heel. Luckily, I had too many beers, and I wasn't a big beer drinker at the time. They used to call me Half Can Stan. And so the tattoo artist said, I'm
Half can stand.
this is my nickname.
I thought that had something to do with kickstand.
I thought it was Q-tip.
That was one that started in elementary
Oh,
school
wait.
to high
I
school.
mean, how many nicknames do you have?
Give us the list of the nicknames through the years.
Okay.
Did you have one called Small Package?
No,
Because it won't
Not yet.
kickstand.
Not yet. But that could be in my
Did they
future.
call you Tripod? No.
They didn't call me that either. But Half Can Stand, because I'd walk around with a can of beer and I wouldn't drink. But I didn't want a tattoo. I didn't want a needle. And all my friends got these tattoos, and it painful because it was like on the ankle. And the tattoo artist here, I think it was like Bohanna, some place called here in Richmond, looked at me and said, "I'm not doing that, guy. And I'm just drinking myself for courage." And as a 19, 20, 21-year-old. And so I didn't get the tattoo. And so when I see my fraternity brothers later in life, they're like, "Man, I wish I drank that beer so I wouldn't have gotten this stupid tattoo on my ankle." I have to explain it to my kids and all that stuff. It's a different world now, but when you get older, ideas that seemed like a good idea at the time turn out to be not so
good.
smart. Yeah.
I still say workforce. I'm still going to stick by it. I don't have anything against tattoos. But when it becomes so much, I just worry about what is that person going to do in society? How are they going to get a professional job? It's going to be very, very hard. And life's already hard enough. And I think part of that came through the pandemic. This was their way to express themselves. And I think it's just really turned into, it's TV shows about it.
Well, you're letting children make the decisions.
Yeah.
And even when you're 18 and you can go get a tattoo, maybe you're not. I don't remember making a lot of smart decisions when I was 18. My oldest son, Colin, is such an overachiever, so smart, so mature at a very young age. When he was 18, I threw my keys at him and said, "Hey, go take my car." He's like, "Why do I want to take your car?" I said, "Go wreck it, put it in a ditch." I said, "Why?" I said, "So I can feel better about my 18th birthday, my 18th year, because I was an idiot compared to him." There are very mature kids, and then there's not so mature kids. But even at 18, I don't think we know what's right for ourselves. It takes time, but it also takes the guardrails you're talking about, Shep. And the guardrails are really that support from family. And it may not be because the family unit, father and mother's not there, but their grandparents, aunts, uncles. We've got to step in and help these kids learn in this ever-changing society. We can talk about artificial intelligence, all this stuff that they're going to have to face.
Yes.
But if they don't have that moral foundation, that character and integrity that my dad said was so important to carry through in your life, the most valuable thing you carried with you more than any money you had in your wallet, if we're not teaching our kids that, then again, the degrading of that society is going to get worse, and it's going to hurt them. So, we've got a lot in front of us, and we've got a lot still to talk about here, Shep. We've got this podcast, Hermie Sadler. We always like to keep up to date on Hermie's campaign, because you know what, Shep? His campaign organically grew out of this podcast.
It's fascinating.
He started out as a grassroots activist fighting for small businesses, stood up to government, stood up to unconstitutional laws. We talked all through the 50 some odd podcasts we've had as he grew and got more motivated and was willing to have the courage to step out and become a candidate. He's now done that. And we've been keeping up on your progression, on your growth as a candidate, me as a state senator, you as just a Joe Bag of Donuts kind of small business owner who really said, I'm willing to step into the fray and fight for small businesses for my area. You're in a heck of a dogfight, even at the primary level. You're going to be in a heck of a dogfight in the November election, the general election. And we've been kind of chronicling that. So I think what we should do is probably take a break, do some commercial announcements, if you all listen to those. And I think every time we take a break, it's me and Hermie's commercials, my law firm. And
are you sure it wasn't 3/4 can stand? Or was
it was never 3/4. It was half can stand, because see, half can rhymes with Stan. And it was one of my fraternity brothers, because they'd walk around and these guys would be drinking off the keg, and I would always have like a half a can or half a red Solo cup.
Did they ever call you Shorty?
And oh, hell yeah. Oh God, are you kidding me? I mean, I was called Lil Bill forever. But they would grab my beer and they would hold it and they were like, it's warm. I'm like, I don't know. But at the end of the evening, I was sober and those guys were in the turd village.
They were drunk, getting the tattoo.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Exactly. That's one time I flipped it on them. They stayed sober, got the tattoo, got in pain, and they regret it. I drank more than one beer, and I must have been such a mess that even the tattoo guy goes, I ain't working on it.
Let me say this. If you looked like some of what I'm describing, what I saw over the weekend.
Yeah.
Not only would you not be taken serious as an attorney, you probably would have never been elected senator.
Never.
That's what I'm talking about. They're not taken serious.
I know of no person in the General Assembly that has a neck tattoo. I mean, I'm pretty confident. Now, I do know there's a couple in there that have tattoos, but you cannot see them unless they wanted to show them.
Because they won't be taken serious.
And I can tell you the ones that I do know and I've talked to regret ever having it. Most of those guys who have it is military, Marines and Army and Rangers and those kind of things, the military that we love so much. But no. And I think a judge, if I had, I had a client that had C murder on the side of his neck. And he's like, I don't know why I can't get a job. I'm like, well, let me tell you something. I know why you can't get a damn job.
Exactly what I was just talking about. I don't think a
judge would take me seriously if I had a tattoo over my eyebrow or one of those, you ever see those teardrops, which means you killed somebody. And I think, it sets the pace on how society treats you in a certain way. And you may be right, Shep. But I think what we're going to do is take a break because we've got to come back and talk. Hermie Sadler, in keeping up with, as we monitor his campaign here for the 17th Senate District, a wide open race. I mean, it's going to be one of the most important races at all the Commonwealth. It's going to determine who has control in the Senate, Republicans or Democrats. He's had his first forum with his opponent. I want to hear all about it. And we also want to talk about the Smart Series race. We had a race in Hickory that was awesome.
Yep.
We want to talk about that as well, but we've got a lot more to talk about. But this was interesting, Shep, especially you running the board. We have nothing written down.
Nothing.
And we have not talked in so long that this is just how we talk.
It's just
the microphones
48 minutes of nothing.
What?
Full of everything.
Okay, that's better. 48 minutes worth of nothing. All right.
But it's full of everything.
But we're going to take a break. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, enjoying my time with my besties, Shep Moss and Hermie Sadler. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, folks. This is Hermie Sadler. Thanks for listening to our all-new podcast, Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I hope you are enjoying the show as much as Senator Stanley and I enjoy bringing it to you. Whether you're a family traveling together or a truck driver hauling freight up and down the highway, I hope you will take the time to visit one of our Sadler Travel Plaza locations in Virginia and North Carolina. Sadler Travel Plaza locations are licensed dealer locations for Pilot Travel Centers, and we also carry Shell Motiva petroleum products for our four-wheel friends. We pride ourselves on providing one-stop shopping for service, food, and entertainment. Our food options include Five Guys Burgers and Fries, Quiznos, Dairy Queen, Hermie Sadler's Faux Show Bar and Grill, Victory Lane Restaurant, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Dunkin' Donuts, and much, much more. Our locations include Sadler Travel Plaza in South Hill, located off I-85 at exit 12. The Sadler Travel Plaza of Emporia, which is conveniently located on exit 11B off I-95, and Sadler Travel Plaza on Highway 58 in Suffolk. We also have our North Carolina location, Sadler Travel Plaza in Dunn, North Carolina. That's exit 75 off I-95. We appreciate all of our customers, and Bill and I appreciate you listening to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic.
Hey, this is Bill Stanley, Hermie Sadler's sidekick on this podcast. When I'm not in Richmond at the Capitol or doing this podcast, my real job for the past 27 years is as a trial attorney with the Stanley Law Group. Here at the Stanley Law Group, we represent our clients in every courthouse in the Commonwealth. No problem is too small for us to solve. No case is too big for us to win. Whether it's criminal charges, traffic offenses, civil disputes, litigation matters of any sort, we handle it all. We make sure that we treat every client like family because they are to us. Your problem is our problem. Your success is our success because we hate to lose more than we love to win. And believe me, we win a lot. Don't believe me? Go ask Hermie. I'm his favorite lawyer, and he hates lawyers. So give us a call at 540-721-6028 and let us help you. Or visit our website at www.vastanleylawgroup.com. That's www.vastanleylawgroup.com. At the Stanley Law Group, we'll make sure we're the lawyers that you swear by and not at. All right, Shep, I'm going to let you lead us back into segment 2, and I want you to do it in your DJ voice. I want to use one of your small business implements to lead us back into segment 2. Go!
So, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another segment of Leaning Left and Turning Right.
That was great.
Oh, boy. All right, you want to try that again, or are we good? Should I have written it down?
I mean, aren't you?
Welcome back, everybody, to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and Shep.
I
Shep,
told
you're
you.
one of a kind, man.
Oh, that's perfect.
You really are. You're one of a kind. I like it.
I mean, coming from the guy who has to look at the banner on the wall every time
and you
say,
notice we don't have it here in my apartment. But you're saying the leaning left part's the senator. I am a full-on, not a moderate, I am a full-on right-wing conservative from way back, from rural Virginia, and I'm Senator Bill Stanley, and talking to maybe future Senator Hermie Sadler.
You mean you don't waffle back and forth depending on who you're talking to?
I have never waffled.
Oh.
I've always learned that in politics, when you try to move to the center and be a moderate to try to appease the left, then you lose elections and you lose your principles, and you're not a principled conservative. You're not a principled politician. The two things that you will learn, Hermie, as you get through this campaign, and I think you will be successful, and we're monitoring it. We're actually putting this into a audio diary of what you're going through right now. And we're going to talk about this in a second. But if you lose your principles because you're trying to get votes, then you had no principles to begin with. Always stay true to what got you there, what you believe, and never lie.
Dance with the one that brung you.
Yeah, exactly right. And never lie. Because when you say you're one thing and then you're really another thing, then you're lying. And you're lying to yourself, but you're also lying to the people that you want to have vote for you because you want their votes and not their trust. And that means that when you go to the Capitol, whether it's the Capitol in Washington, D.C. or Richmond, then you're not true to yourself and you're not true to the people that voted for you, and you should not be in that office.
So see, my introduction is going to get it tied back into this here in just a few minutes, I think.
And during the break, I go out and I smoke a cigarette, and I'm here at my apartment, and next door is Joe from Jersey, who's looked up our podcast. He's going to be listening, so we give a shout out to Joe from Jersey.
Electrician.
He's an electrician. He comes down here in Virginia. He works hard. He's 28 years old. He wants to do something big in his life, and he's working hard from the ground up and maturing. We were just having a conversation about that. And I don't see any tattoos on him there.
I didn't see it,
Shep. So I think based on last segment,
right now I can't really see anything.
He's right in the wheelhouse of what our future should be. Joe from Jersey, welcome to listening to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler in the Center. You want to try that again, Shep? Or are you good?
No. It's going to be perfect here in just a minute. You're going to see.
Okay, I can't wait. Now, Hermie, in the second segment, I think I know we've been ignoring you. Shep and I missed each other, so we're talking
Jeff from Jersey, man.
Hey, man, you make friends, brah. Yeah. And young man, he's
for
working
passing
hard,
that.
and he's out there. Relaxing.
Did you vote for that?
He's relaxing after a hard day at work, which is legit.
So you voted for that?
I don't vote for anything that's not conservative. And so anyway, but look, we welcome him to the show too. He's now going to hook up.
Introduce the bill.
And listen to me, man. I'm telling you right now. All right, he's a good young man. He really is a reasonable fellow.
He's relaxing.
And he, you know what? He works hard. I mean, he's worked a 12-hour day coming in here. If he wants to have a cold beer, then good for him. So anyway, Hermie,
what the hell are y'all talking about?
Don't worry. I know you can just sit over there in the corner while me and Chef have it out. But Hermie, we monitor your campaign. We chronicle it here on the podcast. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Tell us what's going on in your campaign. Where are you right now as you go through this journey of being from a citizen to trying to become a citizen legislator who is conservative and not a moderate?
We had a big week. As you mentioned last week, we had our first candidate forum, which was held in Franklin.
When you say candidate forum, describe for the audience what exactly you're talking about.
Well, I wasn't really sure ahead of time.
Because you've never done it before,
I've never done it before, but it was a moderator there that posed questions.
So this would be like a debate.
Well, we didn't. It was. Yeah. Yeah.
He did. Yeah. He did talk to Joe a little bit longer than we did.
The moderator asked both of us questions, and then at the end, it was about an hour and a half. At the end,
it was a big crowd.
It was packed. Yeah, good crowd.
How many people were there?
I didn't count, but I would say 125 to 150.
Wow, that's
a good number.
Yeah, for a primary.
Every seat
in 9 at your announcement. So
every debate, that's a good crowd. Yeah,
every seat in there was
full. 7,
full.
and 3 were my family members, I think. So there was 4.
But basically, we had
that was in 2010. Yes.
Moderator asked questions. Well, I take that back. There were opening statements. Each of us got to do an opening statement, then answer questions from the moderator. Then we both got to ask each other a question. And then we had closing statements.
What was your question to her?
I asked her why she, when you, and I have some people in my family that are receive her mailers and things of that nature.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those.
Yeah, and she represents herself, among other things, as 100% supportive and pro small business.
And she says she's the only conservative in the race, right?
Right. She says she only...
Which means you're not a conservative.
Battle tested.
Oh, okay.
Conservative.
That's right. I'm sorry. Forgot.
But I asked her how, as she's trying to win over the vote in the 17th district in the primary, which is going to be June 20th.
Because she was on the conferee about the skill game.
She's on the appropriations committee and a conferee.
Okay.
Which is the leadership appoints members from each party to be conferees. They're the ones who work in the back of the room, in the smoky back rooms, and make the budget decisions that they try to force down our throats.
Or your front porch.
Or for the 140 people to vote on, but it's usually 5 or 10 people that work out those budget issues.
In my view, in her position as a conferee, she chose out-of-state special interest over protecting the rights of small businesses.
Yes.
And so, when she reaches out to voters by mailers and emails and text messages and all that, she wants to say, I'm a small business owner. I'll always protect small business. But really, when she had an opportunity to at least speak out against the practice of legislating through the budget, she chose not to. And so I asked her,
standing up for skill games or standing up for small business,
standing up for small business
that were supported by the skill game industry.
So I asked her, how did she reconcile positioning herself as pro small business when she was pro out-of-state special interest over small business. And
I can't wait to hear this answer.
Well, I don't remember the exact answer, but
What was it?
part of it was she referenced the fact that they couldn't do anything about it this time around because there was ongoing litigation. And I reminded her that there was ongoing litigation
The first time.
last time when they actually put it in the budget.
Wait a minute. And for the new listeners who may not have listened to our earlier podcast, because we've been going over the travails of fighting for small businesses, your lawsuit, standing up for these small convenience store owners, bars, truck stops, restaurants who've had these skill games, especially during the pandemic we were talking about earlier. They kept them open, kept them to keep their employees working and with their companies. Small businesses relied on, and a lot of small businesses throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia relied on these skill games.
I would argue they're still relying on it.
And so long story short, they had passed a law, 2 years ago, dude? Has it been that long?
Yep.
2 years ago. We fought it in court. The court declared it unconstitutional, granted a temporary injunction. We went into the next General Assembly session, which was not this year, but last year. And the mantra has always been in the General Assembly, if there is a legal issue outstanding, a lawsuit going on, we don't legislate to eliminate that necessarily. And so that's what she said in her response to you. Is that right?
Yep.
When something is under litigation, we don't mess with it. But what they did, and she was a conferee on that budget last year, was at the last minute, right before July 1st, it's important for localities to have their budgets in place because of the money that the state sends to the localities. They stuck in the budget, giving nobody an opportunity to fight it. They had to vote for the budget up or down, which increased salaries for sheriffs and salaries for teachers.
Firefighters.
They legislated
police.
in the budget banning skill games in another way other than SB 971, which we fought and found and was found unconstitutional, which forced us to go back to court and have that court decide that even with this new language, it still was unconstitutional. We got that. And so her statement that they don't do anything if there's litigation going on is a complete fabrication. Right. And she was a part of that last year with the appropriations chairman, who will remain nameless, and some of the people that were against skill games in the Senate who were also on appropriations on the Democrat side. So she joined with Democrats to hurt small businesses, legislate through the budget while litigation was going on. And now she claims in a forum, man, we don't do anything because litigation was going on, which is a complete wrong statement.
She asked, I asked her that question. How did she reconcile the two, communicating with voters on what she presents herself as it relates to protecting? And I'll just say this again. I say it every time we talk about it. The reason why I thought it was important to pursue legal action against Ralph Northam and Mark Herring at the time was the free market system, small businesses, level playing field, fair government, all those things were being circumvented by Ralph Northam signing this law that the whole General Assembly received pressure from these out-of-state special interest and casinos. So to
Governor
me,
Blackface, if you remember him, liberal Democrat, became very much more liberal after the Blackface
leaning left
came up. He was leaning left in a big way. And basically, we fought that and won.
Right.
And then she was a part of putting in new language, new criminal code language, which never happens in the budget.
Right.
And now claims that even though we got that declared unconstitutional, and we're fighting that as now, that she wasn't doing anything because litigation was ongoing, which is, her fingerprints are all over it. She's one of the conferees, as Shep just mentioned.
And one of the things also that we have talked about is she, like I do as well, understands how popular our governor is in the state.
Current one.
Our current governor, Youngkin.
Mm-hmm.
So she tried to say that she worked with Youngkin on different things. And she even tried to say that by my lawsuit, I was preventing Youngkin from enacting his agenda. My lawsuit was against Ralph Northam, a liberal Democrat. And you and I both know that the governor's office approached the appropriations team, including Emily Brewer, and asked them to give strong consideration to Terry Kilgore's legislation, which basically would have restored regulation, oversight,
and taxation
of skill games like it was before Governor Northam signed that legislation. And
And
they said no.
And the phrase that you and I heard from the governor's office was to create a level playing field.
Boy, Hermie's getting wound up
I
now.
love when he does this stuff. So that seems to be a check in the old Sadler column at this forum.
You hope so, but if people understand it.
Sure. And it's a complicated issue, but
Yeah.
I think
No, it's not.
the simple issue is small business protection.
Yes.
And allowing us to be in the gaming marketplace, allowing small businesses like truck stops, restaurants, bars, convenience stores to compete in that industry and not give a monopoly to casinos.
Listen,
And that's
Emily,
what you're standing up for, and that's what you were standing
Okay.
up for. So that even makes her response even more hollow. What other questions
Well,
were being
then
asked?
she asked me, because she got to ask me one,
Okay.
and I think she thought she was just going to catch me off guard. Her question to me was, Hermie, if you get elected, what are the first two bills you're going to introduce? And I said, the first couple things that are concerns of mine, and I talked about them earlier in the night in the forum. The first one is our agricultural community, our farmers, it's hard for them to actually, in some cases, operate their businesses because they don't have control over a lot of the cost factors that they have. Is not only fuel that I sell them, but also fertilizer, inputs, and taxes and things related to farming. And so I told her that my first shot at trying to create legislation would be to try to create more transparency, more fairness, more of an open market system with pricing on inputs and costs for farmers. Also mentioned, the farming program, their cover crops and different things that the agricultural community depends on, those kind of things. So the farmers could plan more, be prepared more to better run their businesses and their farming operations, something that I see in my everyday life. And the other thing I mentioned as far as legislation was that I told the forum that as it relates to special needs, if I'm elected, I plan to send my wife and my oldest daughter across the district to visit all of the public schools in the district and evaluate their resources they have as it relates to special needs.
That's an important
capabilities. Send my wife and daughter that are very educated and they know the ins and the outs and what you got to have. Go do an evaluation of the public schools in our district.
Is that what it's called?
What's it?
IPE or
IEP.
IEP.
Sorry.
Yeah, and what resources they have, what monies they have, teachers, facilities, those kind of things, and then work on creating some guidelines through legislation of, depending on populations and those kind of things, how we bring everybody up to a level or make sure no matter where you live in the 17th district, if not the entire Commonwealth of Virginia, that your school system is not lacking in what is needed to properly not only create proper IEPs, but to follow through properly with the ABA therapies and after school therapies, speech therapy, occupational therapy. Make sure that you're not penalized by your zip code.
Well, and stop
where you
warehousing.
live to do-
A lot of the public schools are warehousing these children.
Yeah.
They're putting them in one room.
Oh,
They're not
sure.
treating the
Put them in all
individual
rooms to-
student and their needs.
All different kinds of disabilities, put them in a room together.
Yeah, and we need to do a better job. So that is a real that's a real issue. So I appreciate that. So what else?
So Angie
what
would
else?
be the first lady of the 17th district, putting her to work.
Well, that's her wheelhouse. Her and Cora both are
Yes.
really.
And we had an earlier podcast with her on where she emotionally described exactly what every parent is going through who has a child with special needs. It's a really compelling episode. Go through our previous 56 podcasts, and we interview everybody from NASCAR stars to wrestling stars and have very moving podcasts with her and others when it comes to this issue, which I know is near and dear to your heart. You got a tattoo, a reminder forever of what's important. So that seems to touch on a personal issue, but also one that's really in need here in Virginia to be solved.
When she asked, those were the first two things, or two of the things that if I get elected, that I would be looking to try to help create a framework of making things better for our agricultural community, our cover crop programs, and special needs access and programs across the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Now, in a previous podcast, we had talked about, we talked about a push poll. You've been experiencing as a first-time candidate things that are usually in the how low can you go category of fighting each other who identify wearing the same jerseys as Republicans. As I've said on previous podcasts, we do a much better job fighting each other than we ever do fighting the Democrats, which is really sad and why we lose elections. In that push poll, there were issues like you spent $20,000 more than the family of four makes in Greensville County at a strip club in Vegas, which we proved was absolutely a false statement.
Not true.
Wow, I wasn't there that night.
For the podcast, or are you talking about at the
It
Vegas?
didn't happen.
Yes. But did she ever address that issue in public?
No.
Okay. What I've heard is that her campaign has said they got that information off a previous podcast here.
That's right.
And that's not true as well.
No, I told the story
Right.
of where we were. It was a after race event, sponsor event at the Bellagio. I told the story. I got stuck with the bill, some of my buddies, and Angie had to bail me out, my wife, which was 5 o'clock in the morning.
To approve your
Eastern
credit card
time,
charge.
approve my credit card
And it was
transaction.
not a strip club, it's a regular,
But they
legit
just
bar.
happened to slide in that, let's just make this a strip club and it'll sound better. The other thing that I had asked...
Because you said, I want the moderator who is like the publisher or the editor of a newspaper.
of the Suffolk newspaper, yeah.
Okay. That you wanted to address those issues and were willing to give Emily time
Yeah.
to respond to those
Yeah.
issues if she would address them head on.
Right.
Did that ever get to occur?
No. And the second one that I asked him to check into, one of the other push poll questions was they alleged that I had, quote unquote, made a deal with radical liberal Louise Lucas to help my campaign instead of,
Oh, by not running against you,
yeah. So
which that was a lie.
that's a lie. And so when I asked Emily to prove what, I asked the moderator, and then at the event, I asked my opponent, Delegate Brewer, please tell me, show me any documentation. Call Senator Louise Lucas's office and find out what deal I made or any, proof.
Anything.
But when she started to try to talk about it, her proof was that you and I talked about it on the podcast that Senator Lucas had said, because potentially if I was going to run in the 17th, she preferred to stay in the 18th. Emily's team apparently
Right. And if
took
Emily
that to
was the
mean that-
candidate and you weren't running against Emily, then she would take on Emily because she knew that Democrats can beat Emily.
Right.
Or it was her opinion.
That was her opinion.
But not based on anything you and she ever talked about or
but
agreed to.
she either thought or her team told her to make it appear that I had gone and sat down with Louise Lucas and cut a deal with her to stay in the 18th and I'd run in the 17th, but absolutely not true. So her proof was me and you talking about this on the podcast.
So that was easily disprovable.
Hey, look, the funny part was, I got to just tell you. So the next, and we'll get back to the forum in a second, but the next morning after the forum, as you can imagine,
Who calls?
she wakes up and her team puts out a post on social media, themselves declaring themselves as the winner of the forum. She gets up and they put,
That's what
they put a
always
message
do.
up. Oh, I positioned myself as this and that. I easily won the forum and blah, 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 blah. But the funny part I got at the bottom of it, as she's declaring herself victorious in the forum, she says, I will break down Louise Lucas's brick wall. And I'm thinking to myself, listen to this now. Let's just be realistic for a minute. Delegate Brewer has been in the General Assembly for 5-6 years.
7, yeah.
Okay.
For 7, yeah.
For 6 or 7 years, she's been right down the hall from Louise Lucas. She could have bebopped herself right over to Louise Lucas and straightened her ass out anytime she wanted to.
I never saw that in the years I've been there. I mean, there were other questions, right?
Well, yeah, there was a talk about, the moderator brought up Second Amendment. Of course, one thing I've learned, and I have seen, and other people will see in the coming days, weeks, and months, I don't think Emily was really anticipating having a challenger for this seat. And now that she knows she's got a primary challenge, I know she appears to be running to the right as far as she can to get there in a hurry.
Yeah. Everything that I'm hearing is that, she's claiming to be a rock-ribbed conservative.
So one of the things that we were talked about is Second Amendment.
Right.
So she says, I've always been 100% diehard Second Amendment. I've got a 100 rating with the NRA, all that.
Yeah.
But we know that in the past, she has spoken on, and even on social media and on her podcast, about supporting universal background checks.
Barack Obama's gun control agenda.
Executive orders,
Exactly.
including universal background checks.
And, we're gonna have to put that recording on the next podcast. I think, gun control by the liberal left, anytime there's a shooting, anytime there's anything else, they want to demonize those people that own firearms, that believe in the Second Amendment, believe in the purpose of the Second Amendment. And then you have someone that may have said that, and we're going to have to put that proof on the podcast in the future. But this is somebody who is now claiming in a Republican primary in the 17th Senate District at this forum, clearly by the issues that define conservatism, that I am pro-Second Amendment. I'm going to guess pro-life without exceptions. I'm guessing I'm pro-Trump. I'm pro-everything that is conservative, because I've been a conservative from the very beginning and I've never faltered. But I remember in a previous podcast, may have been 2 back, that found this little clip on her podcast when she was doing a podcast with Democrats and Libertarians, and she was the Republican, that there was a clip where she actually defined herself.
She introduces herself.
And defines herself in a way that I think changes the narrative, that what she says at a forum is not, perhaps, in my opinion, not exactly what she needs. Shep, Monday, do you have that clip still?
I think I do.
Give me a little rap.
Hi, I'm Emily Brewer, and I'm a moderate Republican from Virginia.
She just called herself moderate. A Virginia.
Not at the forum last week. She wasn't a moderate.
Of course not. Because you know what? You are changing your stripes. You are changing your response to stripes. You are trying to do anything you can, in my opinion. If somebody says, I'm Joe candidate and I'm a moderate Virginia Republican, who now then steps up into a forum and says, I'm the most conservative thing you've ever seen. I mean, I make conservatives blush. I'm so conservative. But it didn't really. And so for that seems to maybe create a contrast within her own words.
Right.
But did it end there? I mean, did the issue of life come up?
Yeah. So the moderator brought up both of our positions on.
And the moderator was a liberal, right? He's an editor, and so he may have been trying to get the gotcha game going for the liberals in the general election.
I think
he wanted to
so.
box you
Probably
guys
so.
in, probably, right?
Probably so.
But it's not boxing you in when you're going to express your foundational beliefs based on your faith, and you're based on your life beliefs.
Yeah.
When it comes to life begins at conception, right?
Yep.
And so he
And
asked you that question?
He did, and that's exactly what I said. Life is sacred. I'm unapologetic, being 100% pro-life, and life begins at conception.
Did Brewer get asked the same question?
Yeah. And she had the same answer. Life begins at conception. Not in favor of any,
Exceptions?
Exceptions.
When we talk about exceptions, we're talking about exceptions, and it's a liberal narrative that sometimes Republicans have taken on, which is, I am pro-life and against abortion, except when it comes to saving the life of the mother, or rape.
Right.
I was going to say rape, incest, something like that.
The life of the mother. And you know what? That is infinitesimal in terms of abortion and abortion issues, actual abortions based on life of the mother, rape or incest. I mean, those are such small, almost non-factor cases and instances. But what it does is for the liberals, they say, see, you're not pro-life. You're for abortion. And for us conservatives, especially when it's based on our Christian faith and our values like it is for you, sometimes we give into that and we think, see, we're placating. That is moving more to the left, to the center, or the left in order to placate the left, and all they do is destroy you. Do you think there's any liberal politician who goes, I am pro-choice, I'm pro-abortion, except for you can't have an abortion in these instances? And the answer is no. There's not one liberal that says, I'm pro-choice. They'll even let you, as Governor Northam said in that infamous quote, you can have the baby, we'll put it on the table, we'll go have a discussion to decide whether we kill it or let it live. There's no exceptions in their life for, hey, this is when you should have a baby. They even, Hermie, as you know, they even will say in a botched abortion, where we have said if there's a botched abortion and the baby is born alive, that you keep the baby alive. Nope. Kill it later. So exceptions are kind of funny things. It's expected of us, but not expected of the liberals. Now, Governor Youngkin had proposed a very bold agenda on abortion, especially now with the Dobbs decision that the Supreme Court said that it's a state's decision, not the federal government. It's not enshrined in our Constitution. There is no constitutional right to abortion, that it's the states to decide. Some states have limited abortion, tried to outlaw it. Some are very for it. I mean, that's the states' rights issue. That's why we're a government as a Republican federalism. But quite frankly, it's a real big issue here in Virginia. Governor Youngkin says, I'm going to solve that problem. We're going to ban abortion after 15 weeks. Florida has just done the heartbeat bill after 6 weeks, that if you can detect a fetal heartbeat, and that heartbeat is the center point of life.
Absolutely.
Then you can't have an abortion. That abortions are restricted or eliminated at that point. Youngkin proposes one at 15 weeks. Emily Burr, from what I've been reading, and she may have said something at this forum, she was a big supporter of Youngkin's 15-week ban in Virginia, right?
Yeah, it was a time when, because she has access to the same polling information that I do, and we both know that our current governor, Glenn Youngkin, is very popular in the Commonwealth of Virginia, especially in the 17th district. We also know that Donald Trump is very popular with conservatives.
But those polls don't shape the way you think. You can't
No.
finding yourself aligned with the polls.
They shouldn't.
Rather than aligning yourself with the polls, right?
But they shouldn't. But my opponent went from, in a previous discussion during the forum, proudly saying, because she wanted everybody to get this out there to everybody at the forum, I proudly stood with and supported our Governor Youngkin when he proposed this 15-week or ban on abortion after 15 weeks. And because she was trying to merge herself in with anything
to be absolutely pro-life without exceptions. But Youngkin's bill.
No, but what I'm saying is she
created exceptions.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
she's
is
trying to associate herself with Youngkin and Trump.
Earlier in the forum, she's like, I need to be everywhere Governor Youngkin is. So I supported and helped Glenn Youngkin and supported that ban after 15 weeks. Then later in the forum,
I thought she could pound down the wall of Louise Lucas because that bill died in Louise Lucas's committee.
So then later in the forum, when the moderator asked her, she says, I believe life begins at conception.
And exceptions?
No exceptions.
Whoa. Hold it right there. Now, I have a piece of video from, again, the video. I'm sorry. Audio from the podcast that we've been listening to. I know. From the podcast that we just listened to where she declared herself as a moderate Republican. So you're saying that at the forum, she said, I am pro-life, no exceptions.
I am pro-life, no exceptions.
And then she also said, I support Governor Youngkin's 15-week abortion ban, but that contained exceptions, correct?
Right, that's right.
So there's a little bit of contradiction, but you know what? You need to listen, Hermie, to this little piece of audio that I think may draw the contrast even more distinct than it is already just by our conversation. Shep Moss.
You know, I'm pro-life to a degree.
You just hear that? Play it again, Shep.
I'm pro-life to a degree.
Wow.
Play it again, Shep.
I'm pro-life to a degree.
To a degree?
Is that
To a
an
degree?
exception?
To a degree. I am pro-life to a degree. I am pro-life to a degree? What does she mean by that? Do you know what she means by that, Herm?
Well, she was probably telling the truth.
My wife, I sent that clip to her, and she said she's the candidate,
The gift.
the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So what is it? Are you pro-life or not pro-life? Because I think it's an important issue. Are you pro-life or not pro-life?
100%.
Are you pro-life? Are you pro-life maybe sometimes, but tomorrow when I'm talking to my neighbors, I might
You
not.
either have that faith or you don't.
To a degree. What's the degree? I mean, do you have any degrees, Hermie?
No.
Other than your college degree at UNC?
No.
When it comes to life, do you measure that based on degrees? And what is that degree?
Can't.
It depends on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to voters, I am totally pro-life to a degree. If I'm talking to people on the inside, when I'm not talking to the voter that I'm hoping to get their votes from, I go, that's just what I have to say to get votes. Is that the degree? Or is it degree by exceptions? Or is it degree by some other measurement? What the hell?
Sounds like these
no
are great
offense,
questions.
man. I'm pro-life, and I get it from all the liberals about how I just hate women. I'm a misogynist. That's BS. I come by that by my faith. My wife does it the same. We've told that story about my wife and our daughter, losing our daughter and declining. She declined an abortion when it was advised by her doctor because it was, and by the way, the threat to the mother's life because of her faith and that traumatic experience. To what degree was my wife pro-life? To what degree am I pro-life? I mean, I am pro-life to a degree. To me is insulting.
Correct.
Which means I'm not pro-life, in my opinion. And I am pro-life. But when somebody says I'm pro-life to a degree, they're not pro-life.
Well,
they are trying to fool you.
Right.
They are trying to fool the voter. They are trying to create the smokescreen. I'm so pro-life. And then all of a sudden I'm not. That pisses me off.
Well,
I'm sorry. We're trying to just, monitor and chronicle your campaign.
Yeah.
We don't here at Leaning Right and Turning Left with
It's
Sadler and Senator endorse, but we're going to call out lies when they're lies. We're going to call out half-truths when they're half-truths. And yours too, Herm.
Simply.
And this just sends me into orbit. Oh my goodness.
Well, they sound like great questions that the constituents of the 17th ought to be demanding an answer to from Delegate
what did she
Brewer.
say to that? Oh, I was talking about other degrees, like a college degree or degrees in an oven or
But
what kind of degree?
to your point, and I think that's why you're so passionate about this, she is catering to the audience that she thinks she needs to cater to at the moment to try to get elected.
She supported
Nobody
small
should be
businesses.
elected, in my opinion, who does that. And unfortunately, most people who do that get elected. That's just, I'm out when we've been overrun by people like that.
So, Bill, she supported small businesses.
But then she didn't.
And then we've realized that wasn't true. Yeah, to a degree. We realized that wasn't true. She was going to support the schools. She did not support the Franklin robotics program.
To a degree.
Which Hermie did. And now she is pro-life to a degree. At what degree do the constituents say enough is enough and pivot to a true, unbattle-tested, unexperienced, but a truthful and dedicated and loyal father and businessman, a real Republican that the Commonwealth needs in Hermie Sadler?
Ultimately, you want somebody who's going to reflect your values as a community and that you know that you trust implicitly. You don't have to watch every day, that they're going to tell you one thing and do another. That should be the way anybody who has the honor of sitting in a seat that belongs to the people in the Senate and the House, they should act. But unfortunately, we field candidates that are about themselves, that are about their ambitions, who want to be attorney general or lieutenant governor someday, and they just want to keep you satisfied enough to where they don't know your true agenda, that it's about them and not about you, the voter, you, the constituent, you, the neighbor, you, the community. And that's why we're seeing the deconstruction of the government systems that are supposed to protect the people, not rule over the people in a way that determines their fate rather than letting people determine their fate on their own. And I'm sorry, when I heard that, it just, at first I went, oh my goodness. But now the more I hear it,
madder you get.
It really ticks me off.
Well, you just touched on something too when you use the word trust.
It's just not genuine, Shep.
When you use the word trust.
Shep, if you told me one thing and then did another, I would have no respect for you.
I got you.
If I said something and then did another, then I wouldn't expect you to respect me nor vote for me. Why do people do this? I mean, is it human nature? Is it just the desire to succeed, the desire to achieve above all else? And then to fool the public in getting there makes it, in my opinion, the most disingenuous thing that you can ever do as a human being.
We just use the word trust. I want to go back to that because in my political journey, you don't have to like somebody to work with them, but you do have to trust them. So if the constituents of the 17th, for whatever reason, choose that they don't necessarily like Hermie, they do have to believe and understand they can trust Hermie. And I think that's very, very important that the voters have to decide who can they trust.
Take it one step further. Even at the local level, you ran for town council. You pissed off a lot of people. And you know why you pissed off a lot of people? Because you were truthful. But you know what? You can like me. That's great. If you don't like me, I hope you respect me. But I'm not going to lie to you.
That's right.
And you didn't lie to them. And it was tough and it was rough and it was a transition that maybe not a lot of the people in South Hill were ready for. But sometimes that integrity and character and that truthfulness that you brought to a local election now brings good change. And on top of that, you didn't lie to the people.
That's correct.
And you were true to yourself, and now you're seeing results from that. And you waited it out. You took the slings and arrows.
It's been tough.
You were willing to do it, but you weren't changing your position or your beliefs or your principles to try to get somebody to like you or vote for you.
Hey, let me.
Oh, when did you came back?
Let me give you a couple quotes and see, hey,
Sorry, bud.
if I attributed these quotes, if you think these quotes would have come from a true conservative.
Quotes from a generic candidate per se, and we'll judge them.
Emily Brewer tweeted on her social media account, if you don't believe in global warming, you are an idiot.
I think the
that
generic
sounds like
candidate,
AOC.
the generic candidate is liberal. I mean,
sounds like.
So let's not say any names from the other quotes you're going to read. Let's just take this as generic. If you, and Shep, here's the game. He's going to read the quote. We're going to say, does it come from a liberal, conservative, moderate, or libertarian? Okay.
You're giving me way too many options.
Okay. I'll reiterate if we need, but I think we're going to have.
Let's just say right or left.
Okay.
All right. Trump is, quote, an idiot wrapped in a moron that has a healthy cash flow.
What about me? Oh, left.
Left.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi said that.
That was Emily
Chuck
Brewer.
Schumer. What?
That was Emily Brewer.
No, we're doing generic. We're playing a game here.
He listens.
I don't want to stay in the game.
I think
All
we're
right.
too far away from
Here's
him
another
to
one.
hear what we're
Listen
saying.
here.
Get some earphones.
Folks, this 10 patron limit is not a suggestion. Social distancing is very important right now. Besides, curbside pickup is the new cool thing to do.
I'd say paranoid.
I was going to use the phrase dumb, but I wasn't sure if I
And
could
we've
say
proven
that.
that to be the most ridiculous thing that ever happened to our society.
Yeah.
But hey, I never thought curbside pickup was the new cool. You know what the new cool was? The ability to get a cocktail.
Are y'all going to
And
try
put
to
it in
guess
your
who
car.
said that or no?
No, we're not guessing who.
It's
We're
left.
saying left or
Oh,
right.
left.
Okay.
Left.
Are you ready for another one?
Or idiot, actually.
You're telling us who's saying it.
Here's another one.
Stop. Make the game fun. Don't say who said it.
Here's another one.
And can you mix in one from you?
Throw us off
Here's
a
another
little-
one.
Just to throw
Are you
us
ready?
off.
Are you ready? This tweet
getting
says
loud.
Yeah, you ready?
at Twitter, how about a 30-day ban for those spreading false information about the coronavirus? The people need honest, credible information at this time. Weed out the garbage for the public good.
Was that Fauci?
I'm going to go left.
I got to go left.
Yeah.
Was that Fauci?
That sounds Fauci-esque. Say that again. Read that one again.
Fauci-esque.
Twitter, how about a 30-day ban for those spreading false information about the coronavirus? The people need honest, credible information at this time. Weed out the garbage for the public good.
Wow.
Ooh, I gotta soften his mic up a little bit. He's going off the meter over here. He's getting fired up.
Take him down a little bit. I'm going to say, again, left paranoid, psycho, hate society person, in my opinion. What about you, Shep?
I wonder if she's got any tattoos.
So you think it's a she, huh?
Maybe.
All right, the next one.
Maybe a nose piercing on that
All
one, right?
President Obama tweeted
These
this.
are real tweets.
Real tweets.
I mean,
From
this is
some
you're not
generic-
making this up.
No, this is real
But we're
tweets.
not saying who it came from, right?
Real tweets.
So that Shep and I can play this game, right?
Now, listen
Go
to
ahead.
this. So President Obama tweeted, "It's time for Congress to require a universal background check for anyone buying a gun." This person retweeted that and said, "I am cool with the executive orders. Dialogue and fixing mental health system and background checks is where safety starts."
I think mental health is a big deal, but you can't rewrite the Second Amendment. So I'm going to go liberal on that one. What do you think, Shep?
Left.
Okay. I'm gonna say that's not a conservative.
No,
Not a conservative for you either, Shep?
could not be.
Excellent. What else? Yeah, is that it?
Well, I mean,
Man, that was a fun game. That was
game
easy.
over?
That was easy.
I never did quite understand the game, but
I mean, you didn't throw us off at all.
Damn. So that generic person of actual tweets who we will not say
Do they not
who it is.
think the voters are smarter than this?
Do you remember when we used to not have social media and we'd carve our initials in the tree, that it might grow a little higher as the tree grew, but your initials were still there?
Still the same, yeah.
You can't unring a bell. So whoever might have said those things that might be involved in your race has to answer for them, doesn't they? Don't they? Or do we just say, well, that was the past? And
I'm just glad the consultants that are advising these tweets and approving this
these have
this
to be from years
communication-
ago,
yeah,
man.
but this
that
communication
person
director-
generically could have been an elected official telling conservatives that if you don't believe in global warming like the liberals do, you're an effing idiot.
I'm just glad those people
that
are not
doesn't
working for
make
your
sense.
campaign.
what's that?
I'm glad that those consultants are not working for your campaign.
But I don't think I don't think the person, and again, was anticipating that they might be running for another office. They were thinking that when they carved their name into the tree, that it would go away, that it wouldn't be a permanent record. You know, the one thing that is either an upside or at least an eye opener in social media is like a tattoo or a face piercing or one of those little channels in your ear. It lasts forever. The remnants last
right.
forever. But you know what? We all should be informed when people say that. Do you have anything stupid you've ever said on Twitter
I'm sure I've said a lot of stupid stuff on Twitter.
about gun control?
Oh, no.
About abortion?
No.
About freedom?
No.
Liberty?
Closing small businesses.
No. I can promise you no.
I've seen a lot of softball stuff on there. I mean, the only thing I can say I find offensive on his Twitter and his Facebook is that he cheers for Randolph-Macon College a little too much, but his daughter goes there, and I went to him and said, that's our bitter enemy. So that's it.
Well, you know, what I saw at the forum and what we've been really talking about is really a big problem with politics, and that is people saying and doing what they think they need to say or do to fit a narrative to try to get people to vote for them.
And Hermie, let me say this. If, let's just say they find an old tweet or a Facebook post or a quote that you said, you weren't a politician at that time.
Right.
So you can, that's a distinct difference between an elected official making comments while he or she is in that office
Yeah.
versus your personal life, your personal time when you're not in the public eye, an elected official.
But
That's a different time.
But what is, what is really, really frustrating is, and it wouldn't have to be me, but I decided to step up because I just felt like our area could not afford to be somebody's second or third priority. I didn't think we could afford for this seat to be somebody's stepping stone to another, Delegate Brewer. I've never understood. I wish she would have considered staying in her House of Delegates seat. Would have been good for, the people in the district and maybe
and the party
maintain the majority in the House, but basically gave that seat to the Democrats. And she's moved over into this seat. And while I can't prove it and don't know to be sure, there has been discussion that she is considering maybe even running for lieutenant governor, that she has those aspirations. I don't know that to be true, but there is talk of that. And if that ended up being the case, I think she at least at some point needs to come out and say, if I get elected to this Senate seat, I plan to fulfill the obligations in the term of this seat.
Because the lieutenant governor would come up before this.
So that would be another situation of going through an election and doing all that, and then vacating and leaving and having to have a special election and doing all that. So, but the 17th district does not deserve to and cannot afford to be anything other than whoever's elected to be their number one top priority, 24/7, 365, not somebody's potential stepping stone to get to another thing or to another office or another opportunity, or somebody that has other personal aspirations that would come before the people of the district. We just cannot afford for that to happen.
And if you do, that's fine. Be transparent, be open and transparent about it. Don't come in and do all this false politicking and false campaigning.
Nobody should do.
Nobody should do that.
Generally, across the board, 140 seats, 100 in the House, 40 in the Senate. Be there for the people. Dance with the one that brung you, like you said. But be there for the people, because regionalism is so divisive, dividing our state. And right now, Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads, and the Richmond area are trying to dictate the way that we live our lives in Southside Virginia, Southwest Virginia. And we actually are holding on to traditional values, the value of family, the value of right and wrong, the value of the rule of law. And these other areas are trying to say that we're backwards. They're the ones backwards. They're the ones with the higher crime rates. They're the ones not being honest with themselves. They're the ones trying to redefine what family is and force indoctrination down our children's throats in public school systems, degrading the public school system, I think. There's too much personal agenda going on. There's too much special interest going on, as we've been fighting in the Skill Games lawsuit. And I think unless we have real people that only want to do this job for what it can do to benefit the people that they represent, then they shouldn't be there. I mean, you've heard me say this before. My mother did not name me senator. My lovely, wonderful, independent, firm, wonderful mother raised me right. That does not define me. It's an obligation that I take very seriously, like you as councilman. If you want to say, well, senator, delegate's not good enough, I want to be senator. Senator's not good enough, I want to be lieutenant governor. You may have those ambitions, but don't climb on the backs of the people that trust you by lying to them. Generally.
Be transparent.
All 140 candidates. Don't be in the race if that's the way you think. And so the one thing I do appreciate as my good friend Hermie Sadler, who got in this race because he got mad in the way that government worked, didn't want to do this, doesn't have to do this, doesn't aspire to be named something that he is other than his last name is Sadler, and his greatest attribute is husband and father and neighbor and member of the community and fighter. That's what defines a guy like Hermie or a guy like me or any, if there's a candidate that defines you, that defines themselves in that way, and you know that to be true, then stick with that person. The ones that tell you who they are back in the past, trust the way they talked about themselves the first time they revealed themselves to you, not the way they do now, because all they want is your vote, not your trust. And they're not going to work for you, and look, in my opinion.
The biggest thing, or one of the biggest things, Bill, and I've told you this before, as I've been around this district, the 17th district, and talked to conservatives, knocked on doors, knocked on businesses. There are a lot of conservative people in our district that are so disenchanted with the process. They're disenchanted with politics. They're disenchanted with the direction of the state. They're disenchanted with the direction.
Even more so than before. There's always a natural tendency to distrust government, which I think is healthy and good in a republic and a democracy.
I'm talking about to
more
a point,
so based on what we talked about earlier in the first segment.
The only way that either Emily Brewer or I will win the general election is if we get the conservatives out in November in a big, big, big way.
Yeah. Because if we don't, we've lost Virginia.
That's right.
For the next 4 years.
So I just hope people educate themselves, learn about the candidates, make a decision on what you think is the right direction for the 17th district, and please get out and get involved in the process, because, and that's June 20th. Early voting starts May 5th.
And if not now, there's no other time.
I don't know when.
So we're going to end the podcast here in just a minute. But Shep, you got any closing remarks? I mean, we've got racing to talk about. We're going to talk about that next week, because the Smart Series, our team has been running. We've got Bobby Labonte, Ryan Newman running hard, running fast, and really putting us in a great position in the Smart Modified Tour and Sadler Stanley Racing. I don't think we're going to get to that tonight. So let's do that next week, because we've got a 4 or 5 week break in the Smart Series, so maybe we'll try to get them on as well.
We'll be doing some testing, though.
This has been a very important conversation, especially the first part, guys. I mean, we didn't write this down. We just talked about what we see as what ails our country, what ails our state, what ails our families, and how we all need to get together and actually be proactive, not reactive, and really fight against this liberal agenda that I think is doing more harm to our country and our state than it ever does any good. I mean, we're allowing mob rule in the minority. We're seeing it in the streets. We're seeing it with people with the transgender agenda, invading women's sports. We could talk about that alone. Your daughter plays women's sports. What would a man do in the ODAC softball league?
Absurd.
And how would it ruin what is Title IX for women? We have so much to talk about of where our country is being degraded, and we've just touched on some stuff. But ultimately, in elections, what we've always said in this podcast is be active. You know, if you want to get out there and you want to vote for your opponent, as long as you're active, you want to get out there and vote for a Democrat, you want to participate, you're participating in it. Because most people sit on the sidelines and complain. Most keyboard cowboys on social media love typing up something and they complain, but they don't engage themselves in the system. So you can't complain if you're not engaged. And I tell my children that if you don't vote, don't complain on what you get. Don't complain about what happens. And so what we ultimately are doing here, even as we chronicle Hermie's pathway in entering from concerned parent and activist and standing up for small business to now being a candidate, is I think an ability for all of us to see that in ourselves. And that we all have this ability and the courage that you've demonstrated in standing up, standing firm, and taking that step forward and saying, I'm not gonna just let this happen. I'm gonna fight for what I believe in. Same for you, Shep.
If I can do it, anybody can do it.
And that's exactly right. You're a testament to that as well. You know, I've been there for 13 years. I started out the same way. I still feel the same way. We need more of that feel in the people that represent us at the local and state levels. And so this is the journey we take together with you, the listener. And I appreciate you telling us honestly what's going on. And we're not endorsing you, Herm. You endorse you. But we're going to tell the truth, good or bad with you, good or bad with your opponent, good or bad with the state. I don't care if we're ruffling feathers with the chairman of a certain party or a certain campaign committee or a Republican committee in any one district, because they should be held accountable as well. This is why we talk. This is why we talk in a way that hopefully reaches not just our listeners in the Commonwealth of Virginia, but all across the nation that listen to us. And we're very grateful for that as well. You know, as Larry the Cable Guy says in our opening, pull up a chair, open yourself a beer, sit next to your phone, give them a listen. And if you don't listen to our show, you're a communist. Get her done.
Well, Billy, I think the word that I'm going to take away.
Billy, half can stand, tripod.
Stubby.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, next week when we talk about racing, we'll talk about my nicknames. How's that?
Turtleneck.
But I tell you what, one thing, I love doing this in person with you guys. I hate doing it on the internet. So we always have to get together. And we get together as the night draws on to 11 o'clock. And we're always glad when it's not just you and me. We have a guest, and we don't have a guest. We have Shep Moss with us. You always make a big difference. According to the UPS driver that drops off the boxes at my office.
Well, I'll be sure to leave him a tip.
He's going to be happy about this.
I'm going to leave him a tip.
Shep is adding one
Joe from
listener to
Jersey.
the show.
And Joe from Jersey, party on, God.
Well, I wanted to say tonight, my word that I'm going to take from this podcast is trust. And I want to challenge every voter in the 17th to decide which candidate they can trust. And I've known one of those candidates for 50 years, and I know who I can trust.
Emily's not 50, so who would that be? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave it there. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you again for listening to this podcast. We think we're talking about very important issues.
Sure we are.
We hope we're compelling conversation around your dinner table as well, and a call to action. A call to action to protect our children, our greatest natural resource here in the Commonwealth and the nation, our future, and also to protect our nation and its founding principles as we move forward. We'll continue to chronicle your journey being the candidate, trying to be the nominee.
I got to go knock some doors and raise some money.
Senate district.
So now do you know why I brought this
Hermie,
segment in
you're great.
as leaning left? See, it queued right up with that.
You're not trying to correct your own error.
It queued right up with the
I
sound
handed
bite.
you the mantle to bring us back in, and you screwed it up, and now you're trying to justify what you screwed.
TNC, the new check.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. Please listen to another episode coming up.
Wait a minute.
We've got 56 prior episodes we want you to listen to on the internet at any major platform. You'll find Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. We have an incredible library, and especially you can go back and learn about this journey about from citizen to candidate, the Hermie Sadler story.
It's fascinating.
The only problem, before we finish, you haven't invited somebody back for another episode of the podcast, which is your go-to thing. You always say, we got to have you back. And you haven't offered anybody a ride in the modified.
I know. And so we're going to have some more guests on here because it's just been the three of us.
I listened on the way over here, the one from last week, because y'all would not allow me to be on the Chris Williams, David Hoots one.
Wasn't that a good one?
And you were all like, I got to have you back. I got to have you back on. And we got to drive the modified. Got to. That's just what we do.
You've driven a modified, and we always have you back on the show. But we love you, Herm.
And y'all too do have my back, which I appreciate.
Well, and you're one of our best
we
friends.
do.
We love you to death. And we hope this is in there as entertaining as it is for you as it is for us.
Joe from Jersey. Close your window,
Creeping in the door. But ladies and gentlemen, this is Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator.
I'm going to shut the window.
Love Joe. Love Joe. He's our new bud. So, our bud. See, I said bud. We'll see you next week. Hermie, take us out.
That ain't. Where's the banner on the wall? If I know what to say,
He just took us right now.
All right, we'll just take it out that way. Ladies and gentlemen, God
I'm
bless
Hermie
you all.
Sadler, and I'm turning left.
And I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm not a moderate.
Oh.
I believe in life, not to a degree. I believe in life, and I'm leaning right. And you, Shep Moss? Shep Moss?
Good night.
NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!
As an adult, don't we all miss spring break? Nothing like taking a week off from all your responsibilities. Well, here's the next best thing for adults: a spring break from house payments. SaveWithConrad.com can help you get rid of all your credit card debt just like that. We're routinely helping our listeners save $500, $600, $700, even $800 a month. And you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this, but check this out: no house payments for 2 months at SaveWithConrad.com.